Confident Parents Stories of Growth. We are here celebrating SEL Day 2024. Yay, SEL Day. Yay. It's good to be with you. It's good to be together. We've tried kind of as a tradition at Confident Parents, Confident Kids for our team to come together and have a dialogue. Today, we have stories of growth. And I've gotten a sneak preview of the photos, and I can't wait to hear the stories. So we'll go ahead and get started with some introductions and some learning agreements for our time together. I am Jennifer Miller. I'm author and founder of Confident Parents, Confident Kids, as well as co-founder of SEL for Ohio. It is my great joy and honor to work with this amazing leadership team. And I should also say, I am a proud mom of a 16-year-old who is into all kinds of social emotional growth. So I'd like to pass the baton, and I'm gonna pass down the row as I see it. I don't know if it's the way you see it, but Nakia, if you would introduce yourself.
Thank you, Jennifer. So my name is Nikia Hargrove. I am a longtime SEL champion. I am also a mother of three. I also have a teenager who is 17, and graduating from high school in 3 months. And I have 8-year-old twins
Hi.
who just decided to say hello. Um, uh, and I am a writer. I write part-time and freelance, and I work for a heart health nonprofit based in New York City. I also have a book coming out in October called Mama, a queer Black woman's story of a family lost and found. So that's my story.
Thank you, Nakia. We can't wait to read your book. Yeah. All right. Shannon.
Thanks, Jennifer. Good to see everyone. I'm Shannon Wanless, and I'm faculty at the University of Pittsburgh in the School of Education, and I direct a center here called the Office of Child Development. I have formally been involved with SEL for about 20 years, but since way before that, I feel like it's always been something I paid so much attention to, always front and center in my mind. And I am the mother of a almost 15-year-old. Next week he'll be 15, and a 17-year-old daughter. So I'm excited to think back on how SEL has come up over the many, many years with both of them.
Great. Thanks, Shannon. And Larea.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lorea Martinez. I'm the founder of Heart in Mind, which is a company that supports schools with professional development on social emotional learning. And I'm also an author of Teaching with the Heart in Mind, which is a complete guide for educators. And I'm the proud mom of two beautiful girls. My oldest is turning 12 tomorrow. So I'm gonna be driving home from where I am right now and making her birthday cake. And then I also have a 9-year-old, and so excited to be part of this conversation on SEL Day.
Well, happy birthday a little early, and thank you, Larea. That's exciting. If you are listening in, please go ahead and use the chat. Let us know you're here. Type in your name and your location and how many children you have and what their ages are so we can get to know you. Welcome. And for learning agreements, we're just going to ask you to mute while we're telling our stories, but we will use the chat. And if there's time for you to share as well and you want to, you are welcome to tell your story. So let's dive on in. I wanted to introduce this first because we're celebrating Social and Emotional Learning Day today. And that is kind of the theme. I wanted to make the connection. This is something that Shannon and I worked on together between parents' hopes and dreams and social emotional skills. When we surveyed parents about their hopes and dreams for their children and for their own parenting, they said things that you might not be surprised by, like, I want my child to be happy. I want them to be confident. I want them to be responsible. And we looked at the alignment with social and emotional skills. And maybe no surprise to you, there was direct alignment with social and emotional skills. So, as we talk about social and emotional growth today, we know that a focus on it helps us work toward our hopes and dreams for our children. And we got someone in the chat. Margaret, welcome. You're from California, 2 boys aged 9 and 11. We're so glad you're here. Thanks for joining us today. All right. So, we're gonna, let me see if I'm gonna, there we go. We're gonna do a quick welcoming activity. So, Margaret, and for those who are watching the recording as well, what was the age that you saw the most rapid growth in your child and in yourself? And again, please use the chat. Let us know what was the age that you saw the most rapid growth, and if any of our panelists want to mention what they have seen with their, if you can think of an age where you saw the most rapid growth, I'd love to hear it.
I'll go. I think for my twins, it was the year between preschool ending and kindergarten starting. They had such a huge support group of teachers in preschool, and that made such a world of difference in their growth. And so for them, I would say, yeah, 4 to 5. And for my son, who has special needs, he was diagnosed at 8 years old. And so it was around 11, we saw huge growth in him. And now he's like Mr. Independent and, Mr. Teenager. And for myself, I would say now, I feel like I'm growing leaps and bounds with a 17-year-old and keeping myself cool enough for him while compassionate enough for him as well. Yeah, I think now I think I'm seeing the most growth in myself, taking things less seriously than I used to, and not being afraid when they call me out, because they call me out all the time on things. So
To me, that says you're only getting better. That if your most rapid growth is now, that's a pretty awesome statement. I love that. Yeah, that's great. Okay, anybody else want to share their time of most rapid growth?
I can share that the time when it felt the most is when I brought my first baby home. It was that moment when you don't have kids, and then suddenly you have a child, and the realization that, like, wait a minute, this is all on me, right? This is a situation where I cannot blame anybody. Like, this is all on me and my spouse, but still it felt like such a moment of, like, you have to come into yourself as a person of, like, okay, now I have this child, this precious human that is on my care, and I'm responsible for them. So I think that was the time what I felt like, for me, the opportunity for growth was the greatest, because there was a before and an after that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Boy, I remember that. As you describe it, I get a little bit of a visceral clenching that happens. That panic of it's all on me. Yes, that's a really good one, Larea. Thank you. And Shannon, you want to add yours?
I'm still thinking about driving home from the hospital. I remember thinking, everybody's driving so fast. Slow down. We lived in a very small town. People were not driving fast. Um, I I definitely think I resonate with what I'm hearing, because both when you bring home your first and become a parent, it's like there is definitely a before this moment and a after this moment in your life of quick growth into figuring out, who am I? What does my identity look like as a parent, especially if it feels very different than what you've witnessed your own parents as, if you're a different way of life, different things that you're doing, different sense of self. How do you chart that course? But then I definitely also feel the answer of right now. So they are so grown, so independent, so ready to take off. It's giving me enough space to look back at myself. And I think that's making room for big growth right now too.
Ooh,
Maybe
I
that's a
love
midlife
that.
crisis. I don't know. I told you, Jennifer, I Googled midlife crisis and I thought maybe that's when your kids go off to college. I think that's the definition.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know. It feels like midlife crisis comes in waves.
Yes.
But
Yes.
or mine
Part
anyway.
one. Part one. Part two.
Part one, right. Yes, exactly. That's right. Midlife opportunity, right?
There you go, exactly.
All right. Okay. Well, I'd ask each of you to kind of think about, as you're storytelling through your photographs that you shared, and I will move to those next. Um, think about how your child or teen in the picture was changing socially and emotionally during that time. What skills were they working on? What were you particularly learning? What skills were you working on? And then how did you gain support for that growth and learning? Because we all need support in our growth and learning, and really that's what Confident Parents is all about. So Nakia, we're gonna start with you. Take it away.
Funny because I don't want to go first, but here I am.
Oh no, you know what? You don't have to. You were first on the slide.
I'm joking. I'm
Oh,
joking. It's fine. It's fine.
okay.
It's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so I this exercise was challenging for me in a little in a certain respect. I sort of shy away from taking photos. And so when I needed to find a photo with me, like I have 3,000 of my kids on my cell phone, but me and them, these took a little bit of time to find. So that said, my son is on the spectrum, and hugging him or giving him a kiss before he would go to third grade or fourth grade wasn't something we did, just because it wasn't something he wanted. And so the first photo on the left is a photo shoot that we had in 2020, and he hugged me, um, and he seemed pretty happy with his hug there. Um, and so that was the one of like 4 different photos we got to take together. Some were a bit silly, but this one was a little serious, and I felt such gratefulness, being able to receive a hug from my son. So for him, there was a tinge, we talked about it afterwards, and there was a tinge of like whatever, it was whatever, but it was huge for us to see him hug his parent in that way. So fast forward to 2 years later, I think, the photo on the right, we both look incredibly comfortable, and happy. Granted, we were both eating our favorite, I was having ice cream and he was having cookie, but there is just such a clear love between the two of us that I think comes through in the photo. And we were just, both photos were in our backyard. And he now will initiate a hug or initiate saying, I love you before we depart. And those two pieces, the hug or the I love you, are super new for us. So we've seen such a huge growth. He's always been a kind kid to others, but that the loving piece is sort of is new. I think part of that is his growing up, right? So he's more self-aware. I think being also a high school student, he's understanding, his parents do understand some things. And so he's definitely, growing in his relationship skills with us. Jennifer, am I leaving something out? I feel like I'm leaving something out.
No, are you kidding me? You are covering a huge wide territory in these two beautiful photos. And it shows tremendous growth. And also I would add to your story, if I might, or I'd ask you the question. It seems as a parent that it would take tremendous patience and self-management skills to get to this point where loving touch is an acceptable thing, because that means that you didn't push him. You waited, you encouraged, you supported, and you waited. I assume because he feels safe.
Right, right. I agree with you. I mean, I think in the world of parenting, with the child with autism, we spend a lot of time on the social skills, right? On, summer camps in which social skills were the main focus. And the affection or the touch or lack thereof, we didn't focus on a ton, whether that be in camp or outside, or in our house. We definitely put the ball in his court and let him decide. Even during holidays, it's his decision. Do you want to greet everyone with a hug or not?
So that even just mentioning the holidays, I picture you trying to protect boundaries when you're encountering family and friends that maybe don't feel that it's socially acceptable not to hug or not to touch.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've even seen growth there. He would take the social cues, everyone else is hugging, so I should hug someone. But it wasn't, I'm blanking on the word because I haven't had enough coffee. There wasn't um, a warmth, it was just like, a pat on the back and I'm gone. Now there's an embrace, it's not like, see you later, I gave you a pat on the shoulder. So huge growth for him.
So, could you speak to what you learned as as a mom? I would guess that that would be really, really tough to not hear I love you, not have a child who wants you to touch them. So how did you grow as a mom through that?
I think the hardest part was the I love you, part. I didn't grow up with like tons of hugs. So I didn't feel like I was missing anything there as a mom. But I was very adamant about reminding him that he is loved. I say it often, I say it every day actually, to my kids. And so not hearing it in return was very challenging. And I haven't grown a ton in terms of not hearing it as much as I would like from him. And sometimes I just chalk it up to, he's a teenager, or, it's not cool to tell your mom that, you love her. And so I'm still learning. I haven't made it to that side of like, okay, I get it. because it's such an integral part of how I parent, to be able to communicate to my kids that they are loved and wanted and valued. And so we're working on it. We're working on it still.
Yeah, well, aren't we all a work in progress? It's about growth. It's not about the finish line, right?
It's true. It's true. And what a beautiful gift we can give, to our kids to say, I don't I don't have it all together either, and it's okay that you don't want to hug because I don't always want to hug either, you know. So I think it's a journey. And sometimes I'm patient on it and sometimes I'm not.
Yeah. Well, I so appreciate this, and I know you have a couple more pictures to share, but I just want to invite Shannon and Lorea if you have any reflections to share on Nakia's story. Pretend we're sitting around the campfire. You feel free to add your reflections. You don't have to, but I'm inviting if you'd like.
If we were around the campfire, I would come and give you a hug because I have so much appreciation and admiration for this story of growth that you shared. And like if I try to apply my empathy and try to connect with your story, I realized, wow, you had moments of joy and happiness, but also that concern as normal as parents, as moms, that we have for our kids. And what's the quality of the relationship, right? Like meeting your child where they are, but like maintaining the quality of that relationship. And it sounds like you are doing such a beautiful job, and you are gathering the fruits of your efforts. And I think that as a parent, that's also so important to see that, yes, we put all this effort, but then yes, things are, they are coming back, right? And anyway, just sending you all my love from here.
Thank you, Lorea. Thank you.
I
I'll
love
just say I'm just loving listening to you describe your story because so much to me of what makes parenting fun is when you really can notice all the moments and all the changes. But it definitely, for me, takes slowing down and really being present to kind of pick up on all those changes. It's obvious the way you're telling the story with the two pictures, but I'm picturing in the moment, the change from today to tomorrow to the next day. It's probably up and down and doesn't always feel so obvious, but when you get a chance to notice all the little things and then step back and see the big picture, what a beautiful thing. I hope it's making me hope for my children when they're parents one day that they get much better than they are now at slowing down and being present. It seems like the challenge of the generation, just slowing down and being present, because that's so much joy. That's how you get to see this amazingness. So it's a gift, and it'll be a gift to tell him if he hears this story too.
Thank you for that reminder to slow down. It's a great way to go into the weekend.
Yes.
Yes, agreed. All right, Nakia, we're gonna continue with you to your next pictures. These are great as well. Tell us about these.
Okay, I'll go really quickly. So my wife is from Sri Lanka, and we went as a family for the first time to Sri Lanka last year. Um, and my midlife crisis was that I wanted a dog. I wanted a puppy. And so I found a dog that I wanted, and I showed all of my family, and everyone was like, yes, let's get a dog, except my wife. My wife was like, no, we're not getting a dog. And so the girls were like, I want to get a dog. And so we said, okay, here's what you can do. You can have a yard sale and help raise money for the dog. And so at first they were like, what are we going to sell? I don't know what we can find. And then they ended up like finding their toys. They sold a bike. They sold so many things because at the end of the day, they wanted in the end, they wanted two puppies. They each wanted one. And they raised like $200 over the course of one day in our small little town. And so when we got back from Sri Lanka, we kept talking about the dogs. And 6 months after, maybe 7 months after we got back from Sri Lanka, we got Oliver and Evelyn, who are the puppies that you see in the far picture. Evelyn is the brown one, Oliver is the black one. And they are the best things we've done in a very long time. They were, I don't know, 3 months when we got them. But the girls, they lived down every single SEL competency for these dogs. They work together. No. They work together for the yard sale. They knew how to, they were great saleswomen who sold as much as they could. And it really also strengthened their relationship with one another because they were working for a common goal. And the decision was sort of made, we will get a dog if we have enough money. And so, yeah, they were, just some of the feelings, they were extremely happy when they received their midnight arrival of their two puppies. And it was great for my wife and I I mean, we had many disagreements about how many dogs to get, if we should even get a dog, how we should get the dog. And ultimately, my wife did not want a dog, but she was the one who decided we should get two instead of one, so the one wouldn't be lonely. And now she calls just to talk to the dogs. So
That is hilarious. So I heard so many social emotional skills. You pointed most of them out, but I'll go ahead and underscore a few. There was, if you would have just said, "Yeah, we'll dig up the money," and go ahead and do this, there wouldn't have been that opportunity for all of the social emotional skill building. So the process that you took, there was goal setting, there was family negotiation and decision making. There was collaboration. There was social awareness in kind of working with each other, taking social cues. There were a lot, as you said, relationship skills. There were a lot of social and emotional skills that happened in that process. Very impressive. And I think you can see how a simple family activity can turn into this amazing skill building opportunity for kids. So what a great example.
thank you.
I love
Thanks.
it. Thank you for sharing. That's fantastic. Okay, we're gonna blaze forward. This was Mike. He had some really awesome. We'll go slowly over Mike's pictures. We're missing you today, Mike Wilson. But that's him in his teens, comforting his daughter when she was in the hospital. And also I love that he shared a text chat saying that his daughter was actually wondering how he was doing, and she's a teenager, and often he doesn't feel like she thinks about him or cares, and she was showing that she does, that she thinks about him and cares. So Mike, we're missing you. Shannon, let's hear your stories.
Thanks, Jennifer. I feel like none of these particular moments was like the moment to tell, but as I started pulling the pictures, seeing the big picture across all of them, I realized from doing this how much SEL in parenting is so different than SEL in teaching. I used to be a preschool teacher. Now I teach SEL in higher ed. It's very much, here's the skill, let's model it, let's practice it, let's try an activity. Boy, parenting, I don't know why it took me this long to realize, is such a dance of, it feels to me like leaning in, leaning out a little, giving them space to grow, leaning back in. And I think before I had children, I would have said it's probably a lot of leaning in at the beginning when they're really little, and then you back off over time. I don't think that's true at all. It is physically, you have to hold them a lot when they're little, but um, like the emotional presence and going away, I think it's been there all along, the same amount throughout their life. So the top two pictures are of my daughter, Mariella, who's 17 now. And the one on the left, when she was very little, that was just after my son Charlie was born. So we were probably like least awake and present during the day. And she played like that all the time, super independent. You know, we're just drinking our coffee. It was our first time out of the house with our second child. So she was managing herself. We're drinking coffee. We were fiddling with the baby in the car seat, and she's just lining up all these toys. I just looked over. I didn't even know where she found all those things, but she just brought them over, lined them up, was doing her thing. Super, super independent. And then here she is when she's much older, and we were having a day out together that felt very together, very connected and emotionally connected, very close together all day. It really struck me, yeah, that the age is not it. It's like minute by minute coming together and pulling apart. And then back together again. And so Charlie is the bottom two pictures, my son who's about to be 15. And this picture on the left, the bottom left, is quintessential Shannon parenting. I mean, we lie down on the ground and read books all the time, all the time. And I think I realized that that is my best relationship building skill or tool, is reading books together, because you're just physically close and kind of cuddling, and you get sucked into the story, and then you're crying because Charlotte's Web, the spider, died and it's awful, and cheering together. But then you can see him on the right, you know, they get older, they don't want to cuddle and read a book with you. I pushed it as long as I could, but at some point they're doing it on their own. And so now sometimes we have a popcorn bowl between us and we're reading next to each other, but not usually the same book. It feels like a big social emotional challenge or constant question in my mind about parenting has been how to, like, logistically on a day-to-day basis, how to always be in relationship with them. I love them so much, and I don't want to smother them with all that, but I don't want to be too far away. Sometimes it's hard to know what to say in conversations. We're both in a funny mood, or we're exhausted, or one of us is irritable. I don't know. You know, you just have these moments. It's like, how do we be together? And I feel like these pictures are kind of all the different ways. Sometimes you're a little off to the side drinking coffee. Sometimes you're reading a book. Sometimes you're taking a picture across the porch. There's really no one right way to do it, but it strikes me how ever-changing it is in the moment of how to express love and convey, you can be independent. I trust you to have agency and space to do your own thing too.
Ooh. Wow. That is so powerful. And I love the pictures that you chose in showing that independence, the leaning in, the leaning out, the giving space for growth and imagination, and then deep connection and meaning making together. I think it's such a beautiful collage of how we are as parents. And even when I look at the pictures of the children, that the two that are independent, I feel you as the parent taking the picture. I feel myself as the one looking on, and with love and joy, watching them you know, watching her create her worlds, whatever story she's telling about those horses, you know, it's magical. And then Charlie, deeply engaged. He looks really into his book and cozy and eating up the summer day. So I love that the ebb and flow. And I think it is I wrote down such a dance. Parenting is such a dance. And more than just lessons that you teach in a classroom, in the weave of family life, it's such a back and forth, and you've shown it so beautifully. Thank you for that, Shannon. Really beautiful. Nikia, Larea, you have reflections on this as well?
The one thing you said, Shannon, that I wrote down here on my notebook was emotional presence. And I think that that should be your next book once you finish writing the one that you are working on. And I completely agree. Like, we have this perception that when kids are little, we are gonna be so much focused on them, and as they get older, while they are independent, they go to high school, they have their activities, or even when they are in college. But being like maintaining that relationship and having that emotional presence is so important, because even if they don't want to talk to us, right, just being there and being available, I think that it makes a difference. And I think that we need to say more of that, of like how we maintain that presence when our teenagers are pushing us away, or how we can find those moments of like true connection, right? And have the awareness as parents that, oh wait, this is a moment of connection. And I could relate to that, and my kids are younger, but sometimes I get so focused on like the to-do list, right? Like at the end of the day, it's like dinner, homework, whatever needs to happen. And sometimes I'm pushing that agenda so much that I'm missing like the story they are telling me, or the fact that they built this amazing thing in their bedroom, right? And it's like how for myself, that's a good reminder to be like, yeah, just put the agenda on the side, the to-do list for a moment, and just spend like 2 minutes listening to the story, or like they're, describing their forts or what they have built. And those moments are so important. And I don't know, this concept of emotional presence, I think, is so powerful, and I'm hoping that more of us will talk about it and try to practice it together.
It feels easier when they're little for some reason, because they're all over you, or you're reading a book, or you're watercoloring, or you're doing Play-Doh, but yeah. Okay, maybe the next book, Larea, we'll see.
I second that next book. I think, at least for me, I always walk around with like, I'm not around enough. I'm always working. I need to be here for my kids, and simply being, in their presence, is enough. It is enough. We don't have to play with Play-Doh or engage with them to let them know that we are there. And so I think, in your photos, while, like Jennifer said, you can just feel the intensity of each photo, when you look at every one. But to know, the different stages you were in parenting, you know, it's a huge reminder for me, sitting on the couch while they babble about something, or lately it's like taking pictures of themselves with filters, and so me just even watching that, even though I'm like, how do I engage with them with this? I don't know. But just giggling along with them. And at every stage we morph, right? We change along with them. They don't necessarily want us to lay next to them while we're reading a book, but we're still reading in some capacity. So I appreciate every photo here, Shannon.
Thank you.
Thank you for your reflections. I love that. I love the Nikia, I think about how often I notice that my son will remember the spontaneous moments, and I will have spent all this time making plans and being really diligent about the plan, and then something goofy happens that wasn't in the plan, and that's what he'll remember from right from the time. And that's a it it matters whether I'm present to that or not, whether I'm a part of that experience. So that's the emotional presence that is so valuable. Thank you, Shannon. Beautiful reflections. Appreciate your stories. Larea.
All right. So I wanted to share maybe something we don't talk a lot about, which is like sibling relationships. And sometimes when we think about growth, we think about like, oh, I didn't know how to do this thing, right? Like the child like is learning how to walk and now they can walk. Well, that's growth. But I also think about growth in terms of depth. And I think that my kids' relationship has grown over time in depth. So when my youngest was baby here in this first picture, Teresa was the person who could make her laugh the most. Like there was nobody else who would make her laugh like to, like as a baby, like they would have these like all these games and these things that they would do together, and Clara would laugh and laugh and laugh. Like no parent could match that. And since the moment she was born, she had this like fixation with her sister, and that relationship has evolved over time, and I can proudly say that they actually really like each other. And that doesn't mean that they don't fight and they don't have conflicts, and sometimes they are mean to each other. But the way that I see them being together, how they interact, and how they decide to spend time together when they are at home, it really fills my heart. And I think it's one of those relationships, like the sibling relationship, is so important. And I mean, there's a part of me that misses my sister. I have one sister, and she lives back home in Spain, and we see each other once a year. And I'm looking at my two girls, and I'm hoping that they, that even with distance, that they maintain that relationship, and that they can use that as a, as a lever for support and for enjoyment, and just being in the same space. And they are very different as kids, but I think that relationship is so important. And I do feel like they that's something that we can cultivate in our homes, right? Like to have that special bond between our children. And the other two pictures, I just wanted to show something that it's particular of them. And I actually asked them, what do you want me to show, right? Like I'm doing this talk, and normally I don't share pictures of my kids, even on social media. I try to keep their I try to keep their privacy from that perspective, and making sure that once they have access to social media, they can decide what to post. But for this particular occasion, I asked them, I'm gonna have this conversation, what do you want me to show? And Clara, my youngest, said, well, I really like art, so why don't you show that picture? And I love this picture because she is so focused. And this is a present that her sister is going to receive tomorrow. So she was painting this little hedgehog for her sister. And just like the dedication, attention to detail, I just love that moment. And I was sitting there with her. We were talking about moments just with my laptop, right? This was like, I don't know, like an afternoon. And I was doing a little bit of work, but just being there with her. And she was like so caring, right? Really wanted to do a good job with the gift. And then Teresa with her soccer, that's her passion. And she has I would say like anytime you have competitive sports, there's so much SEL that goes into place. And she's, she's working hard at navigating, what it means to be in a team, and what it means, if you are moving up or down in the different levels, how you can bring your full self, while still trying to make it fun and entertaining and all of those good things. So that's my story. And I would add, just reflecting on my own growth, how I there are two things. One, how I feel like parenting is almost like you have these moments of grief, right? When kids are going through different milestones. Like I really miss the time, not the lack of sleep, but I miss the time when they were so little and they would go with me everywhere. But just like knowing that every milestone, every as they are growing, we have to grow with them. And I can feel that in myself, the things that are important to me change over time, and where I'm putting my priorities change. And they make me grow, right? They, like Nikia was saying, they call me out, right? I feel the same way. When you are not being authentic, or when you are not paying attention, they're going to tell you, hey, don't you tell us that we have to do this thing, and now you are not doing it. And I appreciate that. I think that's when you have that open relationship with the kids, right? That they can really see you as a human being, and they see your strengths, but also your faults, right? And how sometimes we come short as parents. We can be perfect all the time. Perfection doesn't exist. So just to see that, I don't know, the bond that creates, like really being fully human with our kids is important. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, being fully human with our kids, that's something to underline. We are fully human with our kids, but acknowledging it, admitting to it, accepting it, that we're fully human, that's another, and sharing the emotional experience that we go through, even the darker emotions. That's another level, I think, of being fully human with our kids. I love the emphasis on the sibling relationship, and clearly you have modeled a loving, a sibling connected sibling relationship. Even though you're at a distance, you have that kind of close relationship with your sister. So I'm sure that has impacted your children. And I also love that you picked out pictures of both of them, or each of them, engaging in deep passions of theirs, that you are supporting them in their deep passions. That's so important, in them discovering their own strengths and what they uh get joy from in life. So I love that. Nikia, Shannon, do you have reflections on Laraya's?
Okay, your next book, Loraya, is Siblings and SEL. I'm watching here and I'm thinking how much thought goes into SEL in my parenting, but boy, I don't know if I always give the same to how they are together. I'm really adamant about them not being mean to each other, like adamantly mean, but that's different than cultivating a lifelong bond. I mean, it's so important, and what a special gift to have a sibling where you feel that way. I wonder who's even talking about that. We need to talk about that a lot more. I mean, that is the ultimate gift, and so important, and so really requires decentering yourself and looking at them as a unit. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree, Loraya. Please write that as your next book. I already have some folks who I would gift it to. But yeah, I mean, so sort of opposite, Shannon. I often look at SEL between the three of my children. And I sort of feel like I'm being pulled along in the SEL teaching in my house, because everyone's all over the place. And so what's consistent is, someone's yelling at someone else, or you know, stomping off somewhere because someone did something to somebody else, but to nurture their bond individually and to see that, you know, Loretta, when I don't know your daughter's name, the baby in the photo,
Clara.
Clara, you know, to see it at such a young age and pick up on that and then be able to really nurture that and to grow into, you know, a hedgehog being so well painted, you know, years later, it's just it's beautiful. And yeah, I want to read that book too.
Thanks.
Here, 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 here. We got a call for many books coming out of this this session. Good thing you're opening a bookstore, Nakia. We're all set. We'll all be there.
Yes, yes, book launch at my bookstore for sure.
All right. Well, we are running low on time. So I'm going to skip to kind of our closing question, which is just, and this is for participants as well. You can type in the chat, but I'll ask our group, what are you taking away, basically? What kernels are you taking away from our conversation? And I'm gonna exit out so we can actually be full screen and talk to one another. What are you taking away from this? Our stories of growth.
To put to put a pin in the to-do list. My kids told me the other night that I was very lenient. They're like, "Oh, you're gonna be lenient with me tonight," and I was like, "I thought I was lenient. Clearly not." So just to be present.
Mm.
Mhm.
So simple and so challenging in our busy lives. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm taking away how nurturing it is to come together as a community with other parents to talk about our stories. Like, I don't think I had before, like, reflected on like, oh, what's something about my kids' growth that I want to share with others. And maybe we have opportunities in passing with other parents in our everyday life, but I think that there's so much uh, richness and I don't know, just love and caring coming together with other parents that, you know, they can, maybe they have different experiences, but they can connect with the struggles of parenting and what it takes to raise kids. So I'm just living with a full heart, just being in the space together and being able to hear your stories and share my story. So thank you so much, Jennifer, for getting us together.
Larea, thank you for that. That's beautiful. And I do think we don't get these opportunities enough. As parents, we're so busy being parents, but don't get the reflective opportunities. So I hope that folks come away from this saying, I should go through my pictures and think about my own stories of growth. That's my hope coming out of this. I'm seeing in the chat, and then we'll get to Shannon, I promise. Margaret is taking away being able to be present. That focus on presence. I love that. Even if they want their independence and may not want to cuddle or get hugs, we can be present when they're being independent. And I really love that. And it kind of wove through some of our stories, starting with Nakia talking about not wanting touch and you know, being respectful of that, to the independent play of Shannon's kids and independent reading, and then the siblings engaging in their passion, and one of them creating a gift from their passion that was showing loving care with the other siblings. So Margaret, thank you for your reflection. Shannon, last but not least.
Do a lot of SEL with teachers too, so my mind can't stop comparing, but I just keep thinking about all the choices that I reflected on, and maybe you all too, I didn't always know the right thing, but I just loved them so much and wanted and loved them so much and want to do the right thing to make them feel that and feel supported in who they are. And so, you know, teaching SEL is often framed as that is less about that and more about here are the skills we're trying to develop. Like this is a whole different thing, and yet the same skills in some way. We do need to talk about it a lot more. It's complicated. The kids keep changing ages, so they change the game every 5 minutes. Yeah, I'm glad we have each other.
Yeah, here. I'd like to say that I think the reflecting on it together will help me remember to be more present. Because we have unpacked it, talked about it, shared pictures. I think it'll remind me in those moments, as Larea said, where you got the to-do list, you're pushing toward goals for the evening, right? Homework and bedtime, and I think this will help me remember that the experience of it is more important at times than getting the task done, and maybe a greater opportunity not only for skill building but also for deepening our trusting, loving connection relationship. So yeah. Well, speaking of deep, loving connections, I love you all. I thank you so much for sharing in the parenting journey with me. What a way to celebrate SEL Day. I can't imagine a better way. I think it's really perfect. I will be sharing this video soon so that others can benefit from our stories of growth. But thank you so much for sharing your very personal stories with us. I believe we're stronger together when we share our stories. So thank you all.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you,
Yes,
Jennifer.
thank you. Happy
Take care.
SEL Day.
Happy
SEL
SEL
Day.
Day.